It's not going to get in my way.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Fueled fire, a very big fire that maybe they're not aware of.
Here we are again, back in Pilot Point. The drama continues, and it all stems from one man, the city manager, Britt Lusk. He has a history of covering up misconduct. After the entire police department filed complaints against former police chief Rex Marks, city manager Britt Lusk covered up the allegations and falsely assured the public that no wrongdoing had occurred. Here is Britt Lusk at a city council meeting on April 25th, 2024, defending the false statements made by Rex Marks just a few weeks prior on April 11th, 2024, regarding the state of the department and its turnover statistics.
And I believe if Chief is here for another 10 years, 20 years, whatever, whoever's on the dais at that time will be saying, hey, we got a great police chief. And I believe that we can turn it around. I really believe that we can turn the ship around, and I really believe that Chief Marks is a good leader and that he can do that.
The only one on the dais who acknowledged serious concerns within the department was Mayor Elisa Beasley. As we covered in our last video, she received calls from surrounding cities and their mayors, who informed her that the police chief, Rex Marks, had lied and misrepresented their turnover data to make himself look better.
Our numbers and the numbers represented here, turnover is not uncommon, and there again we'll talk about some of the factors that contribute to the turnovers.
You and I have had several discussions about the police department. It's about 14 months I've been saying there's smoke. It's I think we have a leadership problem.
I think money and morale are both the situation, and sometimes those two things work in tandem.
As usual, the rest of the council sided with the city manager, insisting it was merely a budget issue. And for someone who Britt Lusk thought was the leader of the future for the Pilot Point Police Department, miraculously, just 4 days later, on April 29th, 2024, Rex Marks was forced to resign immediately, with zero notice given to the department or the public. But this wasn't anything new for him. It had happened twice before, and he also received a small severance package. As for Britt Lusk, he spent thousands of taxpayer dollars paying for this cover-up. But he didn't stop there. Instead, he and the council turned their attention to bullying a citizen. Someone simply exercising her constitutional right under the local city charter.
My team tonight is learning a city sued one of its citizens after she collected signatures to recall a city council member. It happened in Pilot Point, which is in Denton County. Our Jason Allen has been looking into it. And Jason, the city didn't just ask a judge to stop the recall. It also wanted the woman to pay the city's legal fees.
Right, Ken. And recalling or trying to recall an elected official, that is a right that voters in Texas have. We'd never heard of something like this before. And people in Pilot Point told me that it has caused a rift that has spread beyond City Hall.
This is Kelly Burgess. If you remember from our last video, she is the Pilot Point citizen who filed this recall petition against Councilwoman Elizabeth Jones, aka Lizzie Gator. She collected well over the required number of signatures as outlined in the city charter, which should have triggered a special election for Councilwoman Elizabeth Jones' seat in November 2024. In fact, here's the city secretary of Pilot Point officially certifying the petition as valid before the city council on May 23rd, 2024.
I received the petition of 124 total signatures. I was able to verify 105 signatures. I was unable to verify 14 signatures, and 5 signatures were citizens outside of our city limits. So the petition has been validated.
Despite the city charter's clear mandate that a validated recall petition necessitates a special election, the city council, excluding Mayor Beasley, of course, dismissed this petition, stating that the voices of 105 signatories did not matter because Ms. Burgess had it notarized prior to obtaining all the signatures, even though the charter explicitly stated that once the petition is validated, a special election must be called.
There's a process, and the validation was validated by our city secretary, and then it was brought before the council. All the process has been followed, but again, there's a motion on the floor to vote yes or no. Are we putting it on the ballot? And, the only other thing I would say is that there's 100 and some people that signed that petition, and they followed the process, their constitutional rights and process.
Dane told us he didn't understand the city's legal strategy would mean suing a citizen.
We never intended for her to have to get an attorney or spend a penny out of her pocket, despite what people say. That is simply not the case.
They voted to sue Miss Burgess. Now, they claim they didn't mean to, but let's be honest, Councilman Dane. You hired a high-profile law firm and listed Miss Burgess as a defendant, asking the judge to make her pay the city's legal fees. But if you notice, the one person on the Pilot Point City Council who consistently stands up for transparency, accountability, and the people is Mayor Beasley. She appears to support a constitutional republic rather than a bureaucracy. Things took an even sharper turn against Mayor Beasley when she sent this email to City Manager Brent Lusk, highlighting what seems to be a serious lack of communication between him and the mayor on key city matters.
The city charter, our town's constitution, clearly outlines the process for setting the agenda. The city manager must work in conjunction with the mayor, period. This process was intended to ensure balance, transparency, adherence to voter-approved rules. And when I reminded the city manager of this via email yesterday on Tuesday, in his usual fashion, when we disagree, he escalated the matter to the council, and it was with the spark that lit Councilman Major Ambrosios and Dane.
Brett ran straight to the three amigos after being scolded for poor leadership and lack of communication, which once again seems to be a reoccurring pattern with him. It shook him so badly, and it shook Councilman Ambrosio, Councilman Major, and Councilman Dane so bad that they called for a special meeting to take place just 72 hours later, scheduling it for December 13th after the mayor sent her email on December 10th. And the timing, let me tell you, impeccable. The mayor already had a family outing scheduled for the Christmas holiday, meaning she couldn't be present for this discussion. And who was on the agenda? If you guessed Mayor Beasley, you would have guessed correctly. The special council meeting agenda stated that they needed to consult with City Attorney Brenda McDonald regarding the city charter and governance provision related to the mayor's roles and responsibility. In a meeting that they called abruptly, knowing that the mayor couldn't be present. But before we move forward, we have to take a moment to explain this so-called governance committee, because you're going to hear more about it as we move forward. Now, let's not get it twisted. Not many people fully understand what this governance committee is, or why the city of Pilot Point, with a population of about 6,000 people, even need one. But a governance committee is typically responsible for overseeing policies, ensuring compliance with city charter, and advising on governance-related issues. In larger cities, these committees often handle ethics, procedural rules, and legislative matters. But in a small town like Pilot Point, its necessity and true purpose raises some serious questions for a lot of citizens. Because honestly, this governance subcommittee is made up of 43% of the entire city council. And who sits on this board? None other than the three amigos. Councilman Chad Major, Councilman Ray Dane, and Councilman Brian Heitzman. All they're doing is sitting around, meeting with themselves to report to themselves. But the real issue is that they have taken this governance document, voted on it, and are now trying to elevate it above the city charter, effectively making it more important than the very document that defines the city's laws. And who is the only one opposed to this extra layer of government? Mayor Beasley.
So now they've scheduled this special meeting to discuss their governance policies, the charter, and what my role and responsibility as your mayor in this secret meeting and executive session.
The issue that the dais has with that particular email, it does violate all three: the charter, an ordinance, and a governance policy, which is our governance policy, which is a resolution. The charter states in section 3.08, the mayor shall not have interference in administrative activities.
Strike one. This section is very open to interpretation. Except for the purpose of inquiries and investigations as provided by this charter, the city council shall deal with city officers and employees who are subject to the direction and supervision of the city manager solely through the city manager. The city council shall not give orders to any such officer or employee, either publicly or privately, except as otherwise provided in this charter. This section clearly refers to the city council as a whole, not just the mayor, when it comes to interfering with employees or giving them orders. However, Andrew specifically mentions the mayor in his statement, while this section of the charter doesn't mention the mayor at all.
Ordinance 1.04.037, the mayor should not have interference with administration.
This section of Ordinance, Article 1.04.036, states the same exact language as the city charter, with no differences whatsoever. It once again refers to the city council as a whole, interfering with city employees.
And then the governance policy in section 2, council and staff interaction, the council shall not interfere with the administrative functions of the city or the professional duties of the staff.
And lastly, strike 3, this governance document is completely null and void because it's not the governing document of the city. In fact, the document itself explicitly states that it holds no real authority over council actions. Created by 3 other council members, it includes the following language. In the event that an individual council member or the council as a body takes an action that is not in compliance with the governance policies and procedures, but is otherwise lawful, that action does not invalidate the council members or council's formal actions and is not deemed a violation of their oath of office, misfeasance, or malfeasance. This means that even if the council members violate their own governance policies, it carries no consequences, making the entire document effectively meaningless in terms of actual city governance.
I would like to consider a motion on the dais and discuss a motion for us to prepare a letter of reprimand for intentionally and knowingly violating the charter or ordinances and the governance policies and procedures with the December 10th email. So, your guys' floor.
And I feel like a letter of reprimand would be appropriate.
And I would just like to say that the mayor seems not to understand that she is not the sole authority to manage and direct our city manager, our city secretary, our city attorney.
I think we should go ahead and do the letter of reprimand. I guess we put her on notice with the formal document that she can now go to Facebook and post and say, oh, poor me, we have 6 people attacking. But I guess, they could go ahead and everything that we've said here to turn around and use it against us too. But
I have to agree with everybody.
Because this is not the first email. This is the email that stoked the fire for us to say this is not good for our city. We get so much social media backlash for being the good old boys club. I've lived in Pilot Point for 4 years, but I'm not a good old boy.
I'd like to make a motion that we direct the city attorney to prepare a letter of reprimand for us to look at.
And second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Dane, a second by Councilman Major. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
If we're through with that, I have some things I want to
Go ahead.
discuss. I want to discuss the behavior that we witnessed at our last council meeting. I thought it was very unprofessional. I know that we're in the midst of trying to hire a police chief, and I can't imagine that anybody considering coming to Pilot Point could witness or be aware of such behavior from the council and not have second thoughts about wanting to come to Pilot Point.
I would concur.
I would like to add to that it was a shocker last night.
I've got something to say. I think the behavior last night was beyond the pale.
It shouldn't be tantrums at the dais. It should be people that go into the voting booth when it's time for re-election, and if they don't like it, get some new people up here.
First of all, regarding the executive session that was held on Friday behind closed doors, I was unable to attend because I was already had a prior commitment. My family and I were going to go see The Gift of Christmas. And this meeting was called on Tuesday the same week, and so I just couldn't adjust my calendar. But the special meeting, so Councilman Ambrosio, Chad Major, and Ray Dane called this meeting in response to an email that I sent to our city manager on Monday. In my email, I was requesting that we follow the city charter, our constitution, which explicitly states that the city manager works with the mayor to prepare the agenda. And the city manager responded by citing sections of the governance document. And I replied, reiterating that we need to prioritize the charter over the governance because the charter is given to us by the people. Shortly after, the city manager notified the council and the special meeting was scheduled for Friday at 5. Now, a second item, our regularly scheduled meeting on Thursdays introduced a significant change. It had item D on the agenda, which requires council approval for the order of the agenda. Now, previously, when this was at the mayor's discretion, per the charter. During the meeting, I stated that I would not adhere to this new rule because the charter explicitly grants the mayor the authority to preside over the meetings. And the council, supported by our city attorney, insisted that I follow the governance document. I reminded them that any of these changes to the mayor's authority, they have to go to the community for a vote. If you want to change the rules, I have no problem. Take it to the community. Despite this, Councilman Ambrosio, lacking the authority granted by the charter, called a vote attempting to enforce this new rule on their governance. I've since reviewed the recording of Friday's special session after the executive session, and it's clear that the city council, city attorney, and city manager discuss matters beyond the publicly posted agenda. Following this, a motion was passed to draft a letter of reprimand against me, I'm assuming, accompanied by public statements about Thursday's events. Those actions appear to violate the Open Meetings Act, unfortunately. I absolutely remain committed to advocating for the charter, the will of the people, and a collaborative path forward.
All of this over an email. An email Mayor Beasley sent to Britt Lusk, city manager, making it clear that she intends to adhere to the city charter and that they need to work together for better results. An email that hurt the city manager's feelings so bad that he ran to council and let them know about it. And so they called the special meeting, and instead of addressing the substance of the email, the Pilot Point City Council appears to engage in a violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act and was allowed to do so by City Attorney Brenda McDonald. But if you recall, Britt Lusk digs his heels in. He will not be challenged, and when he is, he fights back. No matter what. He has proven that time and time again. Section 55.143 of the Texas Government Code specifically states that it is a criminal offense for a member of a governmental body to knowingly engage in at least one communication among a series of communication that each occur outside of a meeting. Here's some interesting facts. At the top of this spreadsheet, you'll see the names of all city council members, along with the mayor and city manager, each color-coded for clarity. The document was created from phone records obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request. One key detail to note is City Manager Britt Lusk's phone number is highlighted in bright yellow. Now, if you scroll through this document, you'll notice that Mayor Beasley has very few incoming calls or outgoing calls with the city manager, or any other city council member for that matter. But what stands out the most is during the council meetings, if you look to the left, the date is blue for some council meetings. The phone calls really start to ramp up between City Manager Britt Lusk, several other council members. Those council members then call other members, and then call another, a chain of communication that repeats over and over. The records are logged. There is no denying this. You might say they could be talking about their golf game. But do we think that's really what they're talking about? The citizens of Pilot Point have had enough. They are tired of the behavior and tactics of the city manager, the city council, and the city attorney. So much so that a large group of citizens took a bold step, retaining Jackson Walker LLP, a prominent full-service law firm headquartered in Dallas, Texas. Now, this isn't some mid-tier law firm. Jackson Walker has over 500 attorneys across the state. The citizens went all out because they are done with the games. They want their voices heard. They are tired of the bureaucracy and the favoritism within city government. On Thursday, February 13th, just before the city council meeting, the city council, excluding Mayor Beasley, was officially served in Pilot Point. The letter is clear. Stop the misconduct or face further action. This has been a long battle, but the citizens of Pilot Point are not backing down. They have drawn the line. They will continue to fight until accountability is restored. The choice is in the city government's hands.